So lately, my recaps have been getting longer and longer, and it's basically because I've been fighting Mnet over content ID and having to pad videos more and more. But of course, after the latest development with Mnet's low IQ department, I've become more free to do just whatever I want with the videos now that I'm no longer heavily censoring them for YouTube. So, long story short, visit the link below or see my non-YouTube channel links to get the full version of this video if it doesn't go up for some reason. Now this week, Boys Planet started mostly on time, and I say mostly because the episode was still delayed by 6 minutes, but that was for commercial break reasons rather than low-skilled worker reasons. And when it finally started up, Mnet subjected us to a 1-minute time-filling montage about a sentient iPad watching the trainees in practice, because reasons. Now after that, the 10-minute time gap was up, and we officially started Episode 4, Showtime. Now continuing where we left off, the rest of the video was relatively straightforward. For each song, we look at the K and G groups performing it, and we see their background struggles, watch the performances of both groups, and then we get the winners, and then you just rinse and repeat. So with that, let's look at the song 101, Burn It Up, and see what happened here. With Yutaka's G group practice, it was mostly a disaster, with poor vocals all around. And there's also this interesting dilemma with Chenren-yu being unable to keep his arms from flattening out during a very important move. And with this oddly repetitive issue, and then also with Xuan Hao struggling on vocals, I had to ask myself, can these guys actually, can they perceive what they're doing wrong? And I often talk about sincerity or authenticity in determining stable trainees, but, without perception, you can't really self-criticize and improve. Perception is unfortunately only something that comes with practice and also analysis. So basically, this gives me the impression that these guys just don't want to practice a lot, and that I feel like the show briefly just shows them trying to overcome it. But in the actual performance, it seems Xuan Hao does improve, but Chenren-yu still doesn't have control over his body. Now, fortunately for them, the audience probably doesn't notice these elbows as well as the dance master, and so I guess this performance started at a 6 or a 7.6. For me, it rose to a 7.8 at the rap section, and then it dropped to 7.7. Overall, I thought it was pretty good, and they did well, but I felt like some of the dances were kind of out of sync. So with Choi Seung-eun's K-group team, we got to see more sad boy moments with both Choi Seung-eun having no confidence and also Jung Se-yoon also being down on himself. Now I noticed that Choi Seung-eun was constantly reacting to his own performance as he was doing it. And also when the judge mentioned him walking on eggshells, I kind of realized that was the same thing. And he was being careful for some reason. And it was kind of slowing his reaction time. And he just wasn't in the zone, which is kind of something you have to be when you're performing. So in practice, though, the leader, Park Min-suk, he was kind of hard on Jun Se-yoon, who I said in the past, he kind of had an RBF or something equivalent. It's not actually resting bitch face, but I'm just saying that he looks kind of like sad and tired all the time. But anyways, he was dawdling around during practice, and there was some conflict there with Min-suk, who kind of lost heart, but he was yelling at Se-yoon or scolding him in a way. And the mood of practice got so bad that even the happy, smiling Jung Ho-jin struggled with keeping the mood up. But Min-suk and Se-yoon, they talked it out, and they committed to practicing and supporting each other, and this motivated Choi Seung-eun as well. Now in the actual performance, they came out and actually impressed me. They looked like a team, and the intro, it impacted at a 7.4, but it slowly rose to a 7.6 and ended at a 7.7. That's basically a draw with G Group in terms of my performance ranking, my real-time performance ranking. And I wasn't sure who to give the win to at that point. But I did remember G Group having some sync issues, as I mentioned before. And I was surprised, though, in a happy way, because, I like spontaneous redemption. But when they actually won, I realized not only did I fail in my prediction from the last video, but I really couldn't trust Mnet's performance edits as well, because I'm not sure if we're seeing everything. Everything is cropped really closely, and so I don't know. There's got to be a discrepancy there that we're not seeing, and it results in being harder to kind of rate these, or the audience is rating for kind of different reasons other than just purely performance. Now, obviously, this is not starting out good for me. That's not entirely common for me, to be honest, though, to not predict a winner. And I still don't understand how the voting is working with this live audience, but I'm happy for the K group leftovers. Well, I'm also sad for Utica. And so the next groups performing were BTS's Danger. In G group, Chen Yu-gang's team, there was drama supporting Yugen not being positive or encouraging towards his team, and he tried to approach the problem probably by noticing it too hard, which isn't a bad thing. But for the demoralized leftovers of G group, they really didn't need to hear the things that they already knew about themselves. They actually just needed help, and it seemed like Yu-gang was working to avoid or eliminate the problem he saw, rather than helping his individual team members overcome it. Eventually, Yu-gang and Yangjun, they talk it out, and both of them talk about how much pressure they were under, and started working together. In the actual performance, I felt it started out good at a 7.4, and I slowly started to rise to a 7.5, but it eventually dropped to 7.4 because of vocal and rap troubles. It dropped more after that to 7.3, and it ended at 7.2. In the end, Yu-gang did best with good vocals, but for the team, it was rough overall, but I still kind of enjoyed it. In Lee Da-eul's K group, there was an interim check with other trainees, and the feedback was so poor that they started to wonder if they should shuffle positions. Jong Ai-chan was extremely certain he could take on the main vocal position, and then Lee Da-eul, they were talking about changing out his position, and he gained sudden resolve to keep his position and perform his role, despite previously having no confidence in his own ability. And it's funny because in that moment, he's like, I want to keep it. And if I'm not able to keep it, then I chose all of you for no reason. Which is funny because he said he chose them out of gratefulness, but in this moment, he was being extremely ungracious. Now, the other team members, they actually did want to switch him out, but he endured, and he even endured through a poor rehearsal performance. And when you get to that point, the team is probably like really wondering, it's like there's almost no time left to practice. And so, did they eventually switch him out? I don't think they did. But in the performance, they started out at a 7.5. It dropped about 4 times. Not for Lee Da-eul, but actually for Jong Ai-chan, who was the new main vocal. Landed at a 7.1. Because purely of Jong Ai-chan's singing. Now, I felt that this group had a better image than G group, but they had a worse performance. But the audience disagreed and handed K group the win. Now, while at the moment I rated G group 0.1 points higher than K group for BTS's Danger, my pre-ranking scores, as well as personal predictions, actually did guess that K group would win. But, I don't think it was deserved at all. Jong Ai-chan's vocals were so detrimental to the performance that I think they only won because of kind of the weird tally-based scoring that they're doing, which kind of heavily favored, I guess, individual members in K group, rather than reflect the total's team performance. Now, the next 2 groups performing were for Stray Kids' Backdoor. For Kim Ji-woong's K group team, practice seemed to go well, but Yoo-jin was still messing up. And at some point, I feel like this kid's gonna have to stop dreading about bad evaluations or being intimidated by his masters, and kind of shift his focus more to delivering and practicing, and not being down on himself. The team helped him as I had hoped in my predictions and approach strategy, which I mentioned in the last video. Kim Min-sung, nobody notices him, but he's in my top 9, along with 2 others in this team. So I guess you can say I have my pride on the line here for this group. The actual performance, though, was fire. It started at high of 7.7, and then it rose until landing at an 8.7. And also, this is my first time hearing the song, but I felt like there were similarities to Moonbin and Sana's Madness. I don't know about that, but I feel like there's a similarity there. My only real concern here going into this group performance was Han Yoo-jin, and also I didn't really know much about Ji Yeon-seo, and honestly, I thought his face was kind of funny. But other than that, I think everyone did well. And as far as the live performance goes, it was high energy, with exactly the bursts that I said Kim Jun-hyun and Kim Min-sung would bring. Also, I'm not sure if this nipple moment happened, but let me check off this bingo card for a gratuitous topless moment. For Ricky's G group, Mnet didn't really focus much on resolving the previous episode's drama between Camden and Christian. Rather, they introduced this vulnerability to Christian with Mihawk saying he shouldn't have his position, that it was too feminine, and that his delivery of it was too feminine. And then they basically had him backroad by Ricky for the killing part, even though Nakamden also tried for the killing part. Now, maybe some of this could have been avoided if the first week's role distribution went a little bit more smoothly, but I feel like to some degree this might be the chickens coming home to roost. Now, even though I was hard on him in the last episode, I would have preferred a redemption arc for Christian. And I was saying that these guys, they just need to come out and have some kind of apology, although I don't know how they would get to people if you're not watching the show. But still, I feel like they need to do something for the voting people, because I found that even people who are big fans of Christian felt sympathy for Nakandem. And it seems like the show fully discarded Christian here. So I'm not sure if he survives the spotlight from these 2 episodes without some kind of major support. Maybe he does have support, I don't know. But they did show Nakamden overcoming weakness by reclaiming authority as a leader. But I'm not even really sure what his struggles were, other than he struggled with being aggressive. Now, for the actual performance, it started at 7.4. It dropped to a 7.3 due to waning energy, and then it stayed there. Now, Fen Jun Lang's vocals were a huge detriment, but it seemed like overall the group didn't have the explosive energy for this performance. And it was mostly, I feel like it was mostly evident during the English lines. Now, obviously, this was a landslide for Jiwoong's team, and if it wasn't, I would have felt bad, as I pre-ranked this group so high and said they were debut ready, along with many other very precise solutions about their roadmap to victory. Now, the next group covered NCT Dream's Hot Sauce. For Nice's group, the G group, it looked like Ollie was doing well, but Osake seemed to be having some kind of confidence issue. Now, Tui's vocals were also in question here, but Ollie, I think, would eventually step in to help with the dance mentoring for the group, and I feel like that helped the group overall. But in the actual performance, they started at a 7.2 and dropped to a 7.0 for the vocal failures by Tui. Now, surprisingly, Nice did well in this, and I knocked him for looking like a minion from a horror novel, but I was surprised that he carried his vibe. And my only gripe here was the kind of weird soft energy the whole group had, and I wanted these guys to lean into Ollie and kind of go for the R&B hip-hop thing, but I feel like it lacked strength overall, I think. Now, for Lee Dong-gun's K-group, Park Han-bin got exposed as kind of an angles dictator, being extremely meticulous about the group's form while dancing, and he warned them in advance, but they had no idea. While I was worried, mostly in predictions, about Baek Do-ha, he was actually not the biggest problem in practice. In the actual performance, it started out at a 7.4, and it dropped to a 7.3 because of Dong-gun. Now, surprisingly for me, Baek Do-ha was not a liability for this group after all, and I believed so strongly in the failures of Baek Do-ha that I thought this group would lose, but they actually won, and even my own performance rankings have them winning over G group. So, though my previous prediction was wrong in the end, even the pre-ranking predicted a draw, and I thought Baek Do-ha would cost the K group team. Both were wrong, and K group won. And I'm kind of glad I was wrong about Baek Do-ha, because I was thinking this guy may not have a future except outside of politics, but considering that he can kind of pull it off now, and I'm thinking he can dance, guys. Maybe he won't ruin some town somewhere. Finally, the show gets back to EXO's Love Me Right. Now, if you watched my Queendom reviews, you know that I don't carry on ratings across episodes. So if they split up 2 head-to-head guys, I can't relate or compare their scoring because my mood changes. And so there's a minimum or a maximum, and it just affects me from show to show, week to week. And so it's relative scoring. So I can't really compare last week's G group performance to this week's scoring. But basically, for Hotek's K group, Yadam, he was struggling with striking appeal, and he ended up giving up the killing role to Sung Han-bin. Now, I was saying that this group needed to put Han-bin front and center, and in the end, that happened. I actually like Lee Yadam, but to me, he's kind of like a Desung from Big Bang, and he's a strong side character, not really the front man, at least not right now. Maybe he can do that for solo content later on. But, later in rehearsal and checks, Kim Gyuvin leaned on Han-bin for support, and Hotek was actually told by the vocal master that he should stop singing indulgently. Not so much for the artistic reasons that I have a beef with, but actually for the safety and health and his well-being. So the show rides pretty hard on Hotek's name, I feel, for a brand, and I feel like they're invested in his longevity, so let's just keep that in mind here. For the actual performance, though, Hanbin, he proved himself as the frontman. It started at a 7.8 and then it ended at an 8.0, mostly because of Hotek's vocals and the rap, unexpectedly. In assessment and prediction, I said this group was average, and I didn't expect them to win over G Group, but they did. And, I'd still listen to G Group's version over K Group's version, just because I feel like it was just delivered better, and I like the tone of Jay's voice. But K Group, they really did put on a polished performance, and the heavy hitters in the group stood out more than enough to neglect the other half of the group, which I said was making the group feel average. And so, in the end, they didn't really prove me wrong on that, but they just found a way around it, which is that, Sung Hanbin front and center, Lee Hotek, Lee Daeul, Kim Gyubin out front. It just completely I don't even know who the other members of the group are. And even when you did see them, I think they were performing well enough that you wouldn't even really worry about it. So with that, I guess that's the end of the first mission performances. K Group did win Love Me Right, and K Group, they won pretty much most of the performances of the night. Kim Ji-woong, he even won the M Countdown benefit. I think only out of G Group, I think that it was the Keita's group was the only G Group team that won. And I only predicted 3 out of 7 winners, which might be worse than flipping a coin, actually. And so it's not really unexpected. For many of my picks, even though the audience didn't give them the win, I still find them more appealing than the winners. So I don't really accept the results. I feel like they had a weird tallying system. And also, I just wouldn't agree with them anyways. But what I learned was that I really need to update my pre-ranks after the time attacks. Especially when there's a void of information on dancing and singing. Because a lot of people surprised me. And I was happily surprised that so many were doing well. Because I was thinking, when I look at Girls Planet, so many of them had so much better performance. And also, they were a lot more fierce, whereas the boys are a little soft in a ways, and I feel like I'm not really enjoying this show as much as I enjoyed Girls Planet. But this is episode 4. I never really took the time to sit down and update the information. I will be doing that after the eliminations next week, and I'll wait till after the eliminations, because I'm not going to do this for 99 people. But when there's 52, then I'll do that. Another thing that came to mind was regarding a whole bunch of videos that Mnet put out about practice, dormitory life, and I feel like I had a thought to myself that the trainees are affecting each other behind the scenes. There's a lot more going on with regards to redemption and how they're performing, and sometimes Mnet doesn't even show us that stuff. And so there's just a lot of time passing that we're not aware of, and redemption is probably happening all the time and we don't know about it. So, I guess after the eliminations, I will have to also make a new top 9 pick, because my K line, I feel like they'll stay the same. But for the Gs, I think they'll have to be shuffled, with Jay holding down the fort. Guessing I have to recast at least 4 new G members in case they get eliminated. So I guess that's it. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And if you don't like it, give it a thumbs down. And if you're not subscribed, consider subscribing, and then I'll see you in the next video. Guys, make sure to subscribe to my Rumble and BitChute channels if you want to keep watching these videos. I don't know if you guys refresh those pages, but you'll know where to find me in case something happens to my channel, because Mnet did strike me down. Now, here's the thing. Mnet, I knew that Mnet was kind of low IQ because they don't understand copyright law. And then when I told them, I brought it to their attention, I emailed their copyright department, they said something even more low IQ to me, which was, delete your video and we'll remove the strike from your channel. But the thing is, when they struck my channel, they took the video down already. So they're really not people who know what's going on. And so I don't really have a lot of faith in them to even carry on a conversation about copyright. And so I guess we'll just leave this here. I won't be putting up full versions of the videos on YouTube. I mean, I'll make an attempt, but I won't put in as much work as I did just before. Like, I used to spend 12 hours going back and forth with Mnet's team trying to cut my video down to ways that they'll be happy with. And even though I went all the way to the end and did like a whole hour's worth of edits and it took 12 hours to make all those edits. They ended up giving me a copyright strike when there's nothing else that they can give me trouble about. So, yeah, Mnet is just kind of like a bad. They're just an unethical and an immoral company. So for that reason, I'm just gonna put up like different versions here, and then you can go to the links below to get the full versions. But I'm rambling, so I'll catch you in the next video.